Enneagram 7s. How fun. This is part of a series I'm doing on Enneagrams. Somebody had originally asked about Enneagram 9s, and then they said, I would love it if you would do one on all of them. And the questions or the answers that I give about each personality type is what they can be thankful for that God put in them, what to watch out for in relationships, both in the romantic relationship and in your peer-to-peer boss types of relationships, and then areas you can grow to be more Christ-like, a little bit more well-rounded in how you do things. I am married to a type 7. My mother-in-law is a type 7. My brother is a type 7. There are 9% of this personality in the society and statistics where they've gathered this data. I do continually get questions about my thoughts on the Enneagram and if they're occultic. I have a video on that. It's probably easiest to search it on YouTube about Melissa Schworer and you put in Enneagram, or on the highlights of my stories in my profile of Instagram. It's right there. So if you want to know my opinion about it, that's there. But let's get back to type 7 Enneagram. They are the enthusiasts. And if you go to the Myers-Briggs personality test, they are the entertainer. They are the life of the party. Everything is more fun with them. Dropped my paper. Hold on. There we go. Everything is more fun with the type 7. And with Enneagrams, they have wings on each side. So type 6 Enneagram personality is a lot more fear-based. They really want to manage their risks to make sure that they are very secure in everything they do. The type 8 is very defensive about themselves, take charge, willing to just bulldoze through things to get the job done. And so the Enneagram 7 will kind of veer one way or the other. The enthusiast who leans towards the 6, what is interesting about their personality is even though they tend to love living in the moment, enjoying everything about life, because they want to manage those risks, they actually are a little bit more responsible and dependable and disciplined and productive than just a straight up 7. My husband is more this one. He's Mr. Steady. And then my brother and my mother-in-law lean more towards the right. And so they're more assertive and confident, willing to take risks to maximize their opportunities. So the desire of the Enneagram 7, this is so, my husband is really a funny guy. It was very fun to talk to him about this, but their desire is to experience everything in life and also to avoid pain, uncomfortable situations, and boredom. They really, really don't like to feel any discomfort. Their whole goal is to have fun and enjoyment and comfort, and they are fun-loving and enjoyable. But there's just two sides to every coin. But what they can be thankful for, such natural optimism. They can take any situation and look for the bright side because they're trying to maximize awesomeness, to maximize fun. So it's like a whole bunch of contingency plans on, well, if that doesn't go right, well, that's okay, because we could also do this, and that would be fun, and we can also do this, and this would be fun. So my husband is never without plan A, B, C, D, E, but his goal is always to have plan A the best way possible. They're also very hospitable. I have a good friend. She's the same personality, and their just home is so cozy. Everybody who has this personality type, you just come to their house and you feel like you can take your shoes off and laugh and just have some good food and some good fellowship, and it's wonderful. The gift of hospitality that God gives these people. Encouraging and giving, and they very often give everybody a chance just because of that natural optimism within them. They're probably not that bad. Just give them a chance. And they, even though this has it's good and bad to it, they can divert from unnecessary conflict. A lot of conflict happens because of a knee-jerk reaction. You just somebody says something and you just think, well, that's wrong. which really just usually means that it's different than what your thoughts are on it. But because conflict is uncomfortable and not fun, the other option is to just be like, not worth the bother. Hey, let's divert and go over here to option B. That looks exciting. So they just avoid a lot of unnecessary conflict, and they're a lot more peaceful for it. Now, things to watch out for in relationships, and I think this is different for guys versus girls. I asked my husband what he feels like would be awful if he married somebody. He said he would not do as a male. He wouldn't do well with maybe like a type 8 or a choleric, or if you look in the Myers-Briggs, it's more the leader role personalities. They lack empathy, and so they're just willing to trample over people to accomplish their goals. Because he is more easygoing and he would prefer to divert conflict, he would just end up walling himself off from that personality. Like that person might lead the home, but there would be no intimacy there as far as that closeness, because there would just be a whole bunch of resentment. And then the wife probably wouldn't respect him because he just has a completely different approach to life than somebody who's so goal driven, usually in the career mindset. But I'm not saying it won't work, but there are a lot more conflicts that come up, and then the wife you just have to learn how to accept and to submit to the authority versus leading your husband. For wives, what I've very often seen with this personality is that what works well with that personality and versus who they actually marry is usually really different. I have seen that a little bit more of a calmer, easygoing, go with the flow personality can do really well with them because they are a lot more accepting of people. And because the type 7's so long for freedom and enjoyment and to not be boxed in by what other people think life needs to be about, that just, if they're both a little bit more easygoing, it's a little bit of a smoother ride. So there's not as much resentment. But very often what I do see is that type 7s marry commanding men because that opposites attract side of things. I'm not saying it always works together, but they do attract because this person's exciting and optimistic, and this person might be a little bit more perfectionist and negative, and so they can help teach each other. You know, the commander can bring some more structure, external structure into their life, even though the 7's going to resent it. They also kind of need it. So if both of those types are yielded to the Lord, it can work out really well. But it just inevitably, there's going to be some conflicts there. So just be careful to see if you are attracted to those driven personalities. Are you willing to, you're going to have to step up your game a little bit. Because if you're going to homeschool your children, they're probably going to want you to have a little bit more structure than you're having. And so what happens if you don't do well in that kind of structure? How are you going to communicate that? How are you going to help fulfill his visions of what the family life is like when that's really not your skill set? You're a little bit more just relaxed and hands off and giving other people lots of liberty to do what they want to do. And so, and the same thing goes with cleanliness. Usually these driven people want their houses spotless, where you're more like, can't we just have cake? You know, it looks good enough. Let's, you know, this vacuuming with lines in the carpet, you know, it's got vacuumed this week. You know, can't we just sit down and have a really nice time and discuss our day, or maybe go for a walk, do something fun? Why waste life putting lines in your carpet with the vacuum cleaner? So that's just what I would look out for. But what works well for my husband is and I is that in the 7th year of our marriage, I am more of a driven personality, but I am empathetic and an encourager. But I learned how to accept him. It was, I read the book Power of a Praying Wife and said, are you willing to accept your husband even if he never changes? And I was like, heck no. God smote my heart. And I had to learn and conform to the image of Christ, and I accepted my husband and put my trust in the Lord, and I talk about that and other things. But from then on, our relationship, it was good, but it is beautiful now because I accepted him and I encourage him and all of his passionate things that he loves to get involved in. Areas to grow. This one is the type 7 doesn't want to grow. Nope. Growth means that there's going to be uncomfortable things and discipline and effort. And honestly, usually they're pretty optimistic about themselves and they don't see why they would need to change who they are because they're pretty awesome, they believe. Why would they want to be more like you when they're obviously the complete package the way that it is? But I was reading these things to my husband. One in particular was that they need to learn that there is value in discomfort. And he's like, no, there's not. There is no value in discomfort. And I was like, no, but if you just understand that, if there's a conflict, and rather than letting it blow up and then, people lose their temper and all of this, and then it just becomes this cycle. If you talk to them and say, I see that you keep being a little passive aggressive at me, it's about something, and I recognize this, and I'd really appreciate it if you would stop treating me that way. He's like, oh, that's true, that's valid. He's like, because, and this is what he says, that the only time it's okay to be uncomfortable is if it creates greater amounts of comfort afterwards. So comfort is still the ultimate goal. And so that leads to the next thing of areas of growth. Because you sevens love to enjoy things. And if your hobby becomes food, or you're just an addiction prone personality type. So whether it be alcohol, drugs, pornography, food, spending, redecorating houses, just whatever it is, you're all in. You're all in, and without some external controls, there could be problems. So this is something that's just some wisdom. Try to find a hobby or some fitness or something that is super enjoyable, that involves a lot of people, but if you get completely engrossed in it, it will not have a negative effect. It will have a positive effect on your life. Maybe it's basketball, maybe it's, aerobics, swimming. Try to find something that can help your health and that you can really go all in. And that will help to counteract the natural tendencies towards gluttony and laziness. I'm so sorry that I said that out loud, but it's true. Anyway, also, another good thing is to recognize if you find yourself in a spiral of dissatisfaction. Because one of the things of trying to maximize fun, maximize pleasure, maximizing enjoyment is that, I'll use my husband because he loves me and he knows that he's created boundaries for this, but he'll get on a kick of buying this type of thing. He loves board games, and so he used to buy one board game and we wouldn't even get a chance to play it, and he'd buy the next one, and we wouldn't get a chance to play that, and then he'd buy the next one. And there came a point where it was like he had ADD of buying games because he would think this is the one that's gonna be the one that everybody's gonna play and it's gonna be the best time, but it didn't satisfy. So now he has this checklist of, do I actually need this? And if I buy this, is there going to be, he has a shelf and he's like, there's no more room on this shelf. So it means I have to sell one to buy another. and to create those external controls that make you be honest with yourself. Because there's nothing wrong with enjoying life. It is the gift of God. But you need to be able to rest and find joy and contentment in God. And if you're so restless that you need to just keep looking for the next thing that's going to satisfy, the next thing that's going to bring excitement, you really, really struggle with boredom. And if you cannot get some grip on that, it can really be detrimental to your relationships, your finances, all sorts of things, because enjoyment is your greatest desire, unless the Lord is your greatest desire and you can find some contentment. It's true, the Bible says the eye of man is never satisfied. The last thing in regards to relationships, because you're so much about fun and living in the moment. Oh no, there's two things. Be willing to go deep in your relationships, or they'll never be more than surface level. And you have lots of acquaintances, but you might find that you don't have any deep friends. And that's because when the going gets tough, you get going. And you just don't want to have those conversations that the other person you might need. So allow yourself to be vulnerable and have hard conversations when necessary. And it's this hard conversations, that's the second thing. Because you have to learn to face conflict. If you're more geared towards the 6 side of security, you might be more of the flight type of personality. But if you lean more towards the 8 side, you might find that both of you can stick your head in the sand and just be like, I'm just going to divert, I'm going to do something else, I'm going to avoid it, this doesn't feel good. But then it builds up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up until you blow up. And that is not Christ-like. So you need to recognize that there is value in uncomfortableness, because there is an issue that needs to be addressed. And so it will be far more comfortable if you have those hard conversations calmly in a Christ-like manner. James chapter 3. If you don't, and you blow up, it causes a greater conflict. But what is really the worst thing about this for you in the long run, which will cause less comfort, less fellowship, less enjoyment, is because you'll walk away feeling good and fine and everything's better because you got to say what you wanted to say. But that person carries it with them. They don't forget. They don't live in the moment like you do. And they're going to look at you and they're going to think, that person doesn't handle conflict very well. That person is immature in their emotional intelligence. That person caused me pain. And if you continue in that cycle, because then they have this resentment, and if they can't come and have those hard conversations with you without you clamming up, walking away, or blowing up, then you're going to have a series of relationships that just fall away. They're not going to be your acquaintances anymore. They're not, and if they're your family, it's going to be a really shallow family relationship, because they're going to walk on eggshells around you because they don't trust you anymore. So learning the value of the discomfort that lets you recognize there's something wrong going on here. I need to have that hard conversation for the greater enjoyment in the long run. That is something to help you to be more Christ-like and to deal with things appropriately. Type 7s.